Ironheart, a show that a lot of us wasn't sure was going to actually come out. I feel like after its announcement, things were really quiet up until the point of like a month or two ago. We started to get trailers for it, and it was a quick turnaround between the trailer and the show releasing here. But without further ado, I want to get into a discussion on the first 3 episodes that debuted today. Now, that being said, everybody, I want you to understand when me discussing this show, this is not a full indictment on the entire series as a whole. There are still 3 more episodes that are going to release. So again, these first 3 are just early thought process. This show could end up being drastically better than what I say it is in this video, or drastically worse. Without further ado, if you want to see what I have to say about these first 3 episodes, stick around. Roll the intro.
You're now watching The Captain.
I've been really impressed with the introduction of Riri Williams into the Marvel Universe with her first appearance in Black Panther 2. And I was really incredibly impressed with how they characterized her in such a limited amount of time with that movie. And going into this, I think that the actress just picked up where she left off. For the most part, Riri seems to be a very complicated and layered character. She is a character with a lot of ambition, for lack of a better term. She feels like she is above a lot of things and that her genius and her greatness is bigger than the confines of an institution and the box that they try to put her in there. We open up with a lot of this kind of a follow-up from the stuff that happened and the fallout of Wakanda Forever film in regards to showing that she went to Wakanda, was really impressed with the things that she could do over there with those resources, and realized she gets back to Chicago and remembers, oh, I'm poor. I don't have the resources to build crazy mega Wakandan suits like I did when I was over there. I don't have access to the vibranium and whatnot. So she goes back to school and she's just like locked in on trying to build her Iron Man suit. And that's the interesting thing about this character in particular. She has the genius to do anything she wants within this world. Her genius is on par with somebody like a Tony Stark or Bruce Banner, Hank Pym. We find out that in her early parts of her life that at the age of like 15, she graduated high school and started college. So she is the genius in all forms and fashions of the word. But like I mentioned before, she has all this ability, but decides to only focus on building metal Iron Man suits. And a lot of people ask her why, like why the suit? That's something that gets repeated a lot within the first 2 episodes. That people always asking her, why the suit? Why the suit? You can build anything else. You can build anything else you would want, but why the suit? And for most of the episodes, for first and second, the immediate response she gets is because I can. We get further into episode 3 and we realize that she has a hard focus on Iron Man suits and Stark tech for the most part because her stepfather, who was very influential in her life, was a big fan of Tony Stark, like a super mega fan, and always spoke highly of him. So I guess that is changing how her love for Tony Stark's Iron Man suits and her want to keep building them came from. She sees the suits as a medium for people like firemen, policemen, anyone in the National Guard or the military in general to have access to these and be able to do their job more efficiently and safer. So she sees them as a tool for people to, serve the public better. But it's also kind of weird because, again, she is constantly trying to upgrade suits as much as she can. Like her whole idea in this series so far is to get as much money as she can and put all that money directly back into a suit and upgrading it as much as she can, which is cool. It's interesting. I think this amount of development for Riri in this direction they're going with her was very interesting because for the most part, she seems very similar to Tony Stark in the way that he went about things. Obviously, he didn't have the same mindset of that I'm bigger than everything else. He just realized that I have the ability to do great things with the resources that I have, so I will distribute them out. So there's a lot of moments like that within this show so far where you get parallels to her mindset, or maybe just her environment to the environment that Tony Stark had. Obviously, he had a lot of resources, but was able to achieve his greatness through not having any resources within that cave in the Middle East and was able to build the Mark I armor. And it's kind of a running thing you get here within this series, a returning kind of metaphor of people being at their lowest, being able to showcase who they possibly are at their best. And you kind of have that metaphor there with a literal phrase that Riri says her stepfather always had in regards to showing that when people want to know what something is or how something works, you take it apart and you put it back together. So again, I get that whole sentiment there when I'm looking at Tony Stark being in the Middle East and having nothing, building the Mark I, and then Riri being someone here that has literally no resources and building the best of what she has available. So again, there's a lot of parallels there, and there aren't just parallels in the mindset or in the suits there. There's also parallels parallels within characters that are placed around them. We obviously remember Obadiah Stane being a very big influential figure in the first Iron Man film, being the Ironmonger. Getting into this film, we find out that his son, Ezekiel Stain, is a character that is within the series. He was never really close with his father, and for the most part doesn't really look at his father as a good person. He wants to be very different from his father. When we first meet him, he's very meek, he's very passionate about technology, but doesn't even want to touch it because he doesn't want to touch anything to make him feel like he'll go down the same route as being his father and being a bad person. I really enjoyed this character. He, Riri, the character named John in the series are my favorite three that I've seen on screen so far. When they're around, I'm usually very impressed with their energy and the performances that they give as these characters. Ezekiel especially, because we can see Ezekiel has the makings of becoming a monster. And I really enjoy him because when we first meet him in the series, he's very meek. He doesn't want to speak. He doesn't really want to, he doesn't like confrontation for the most part. And Riri comes around being her robust, flamboyant self, and is letting him know that she's a very strong person, as we already know, and she kind of instills that thought process in him, letting him know that he can't just let people walk all over him. He has to stand up for himself, and it's very interesting. And they're doing a thing here that I kind of feel like they're building towards, with him in particular being an in-game character by the end of the series, to where he is taking that advice that Riri gives him to heart, because we see him almost immediately, either I think it's the second episode, maybe the third, where we see him go back to Riri's apartment or find where Riri lives and stand up to her and get her to help him with something that he has going on. And he thanks her for giving him the ability to stand up for himself. You're actively seeing this rapid development in him in real time, and it's done in a very interesting way that's very subtle, and you have hints of like showing who he is underneath, or who he can be, the potential of being this crazy person that is just like his father. And kind of, I guess there's that metaphor there in regards to showcasing that when he is at his lowest, he is showing that at his best, he's probably going to be similar to his father. So I don't know if they go down the route of making him a villain. I think they're setting it up really well, but maybe we'll see how that goes. But getting into the other villain in the series being the Hood. For a while now, I was very, very interested in finding out how they were going to do things with this film. Not film, but with this series. Originally in Agatha All Along, I remember there being reports that Mephisto, the great demon of a hell realm, I guess for lack of a better term, he's one of the hell lords in the Marvel universe. It was reported that he was supposed to be making an appearance in Agatha All Along, but then was pulled out and placed within this series to some extent. And initially I was so confused, because you would figure in a show like Agatha All Along, based in witches and characters who are dealing in witchcraft and wizardry, you would think that'd be the perfect place for Mephisto to make an appearance, but it seems as though he's going to make an appearance in this. And I didn't know how that was going to happen until we got into showcasing the character of the Hood. For the most part, I'm not super extensively knowledgeable on Hood's comic history, but for the most part, from what I understand, that the hood that he wears is demon possessed, for lack of a better term. And whenever the character wears, the character Parker is his name, he wears his hood, and he is somewhat possessed or influenced by a demon that is possessing the Hood and causes him to do horrible things. So apparently Mephisto is supposed to make an appearance, and we even see in the third episode that he's like speaking to the Hood, or to at least to the demon that is possessing the Hood that wants him to do certain things. It's pretty interesting. I think they're setting this show up pretty well. And again, I've given a lot of positivity to the show, but here's why I want to offer some critique and kind of look into all the annoying discussion I think that's been around. IGN has reposted their review on the series, which is crazy to me that you're giving a review on 3 episodes of a 6-episode series. Like, giving out a full review on something is kind of crazy, but maybe they got earlier access to it, so that could be the situation. But all that being said, they give it a 5. I can understand why somebody would see this as being mediocre, because at least in my part, a 5 out of 10 is literally the definition of mediocre. The first 2 episodes, very much so a slow burn. It was a lot of introduction. It was a lot of kind of bits. I felt like there is this thing with a lot of the MCU shows where it feels like the episodes aren't put together in the right order sometimes, or maybe things were shot in a different order and they just had to like puzzle piece them together to make them fit, because there's a lot of different moments and scenes that are kind of extra, or that could have been cut out of here as well. Again, I know I'm rambling, but that's probably the crux of my argument in regards to some critique for the series. Early on in the first 2 episodes, I felt like there's just a lot of wasted space. Like, there are certain scenes that could have been cut. There's a lot of music cues that didn't need to be there. For whatever reason, this show is obsessed with using all their money that they got approved for the show on the music, because there's a lot of different scenes where they'll have like 30 seconds to a minute of a full song being played while they're doing establishing shots, or there's a lot of establishing shots in this too, and a lot of music over the establishing shots. Again, it's cool in certain aspects, but it feels like the show's trying to be hip, because there's too many like modern songs, and sometimes the songs are like too spot on the nose. goes. And that's probably my biggest critiques on the first 2 episodes of the series so far. Because I think the 3rd episode really sets the show up and sets it apart, and that's where things really kick off. The biggest point of nerd conversation I feel like there's going to be is the idea of Natalie. And for people that aren't aware, Natalie in this series is a AI that is constructed by a brain scan of Riri's brain. We see that Riri like scans her brain, and while she's scanning her brain, goes to sleep and thinks about thoughts of her dead friend and the moment of death of her friend. And in doing so, Natalie is created from that. And I think the weird thing is we've never seen an AI like Natalie before. And I know this is kind of somewhat based on Wakandic technology. So I'm very interested in trying to figure out how this is so different from anything we've seen before. Because Natalie isn't just like a super advanced AI. We've seen really advanced AI in something like Jarvis in the MCU thus far. Feels like Natalie as an AI has like memories and thoughts and emotions that differs very much so from any other AI we've seen up until this point. So hopefully we get a bigger explanation as to why she's so different and why she's so special, because even Wakandans, to my knowledge, don't even have AI like this. So it's very confusing, because even Riri is like how she exists in the way that she exists, because she's supposed to be an AI. She's supposed to just follow directives, but Natalie feels very much like a character. And I enjoy it. For the most part, I enjoy her character thus far, in her being the Robin to Riri's Batman, being Jarvis to her Tony in this whole situation. The fact that they're so intertwined as best friends is cool to me. I think it's fun. And I think that's the thing that makes her unique and makes her different from Tony so far in the MCU, is her AI, as well as a lot of the different ways she goes to approach certain things. She very much so approaches things from a teamwork standpoint. It's not just her, it's her and Natalie after a while. So you see her try to do things on her own in the first 2 episodes, but we see how difficult that can get. But again, all that being said, good things. The show has a lot of unique things in regards to the acting. It's introducing a lot of unique concepts. It's really fun up in like once you get into the 3rd episode. But the negatives are, I can understand for a lot of people that the first 2 episodes are definitely dragged and definitely kind of fluffed up with things that aren't needed. But when you get to this 3rd episode, the 3rd episode is what really kicks things off. And I really hope that after this 3rd episode, 4, 5, and 6 stay on that same trajectory in regards to things getting kicked off. Again, there's only 3 more episodes. So we can't go back to slowing things down and making things really conflated and fluffed up. We need to stay very concise to the end of this story, so we can have this story transition into whatever we got coming next. Those are my thoughts. I'm not going to give this show a rating until the show ends, and I'll give like a general overthought of everything. But these are just some of my early thoughts and early ramblings on the show so far. So y'all let me know in the comment section below. What do you think of Ironheart episode 1 through 3? What are your thoughts? How do you feel about the character, about the things that are going on, and what is maybe potentially introducing? But without further ado, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.